There was a stunning front page of the Hobart Mercury today, and it's a story that still lives while we're going to bed tonight. It was the story of a person who, after they died, has had their final thoughts written down about, or read rather, to the Royal Commission into aged care. Have a look at some of the things that were being said. The family are too upset to talk tonight. We reached out to them today, so we rely upon the media reports of what their family member wrote in their dying days about their condition. 21st century Australia. Well, that person turned around and said that they felt like they were being treated like a piece of meat, like they were being completely ignored by the system. Gabrielle Power has a little more detail for you.
Too often was Brian Harvey left to feel degraded and humiliated in the place that was supposed to care for him. The 84-year-old man was living in the Yarrandoo Hostel, an aged care home near Burnie in Tasmania. Brian was battling prostate cancer. He was immobile and needed toileting assistance in his room. He was frequently abandoned on a mobile toilet, unable to get off, sometimes for as long as 90 minutes. In a submission to the Aged Care Royal Commission in Hobart, Brian wrote, "When neglected like that, I feel I have been dehumanised, left as a carcass in an aged care abattoir, ready to be processed like a slab of meat in a sausage processing factory." The operations of two Southern Cross Carers facility, Yarrandoo Hostel and Glenara Lakes, are being examined this week, but Brian won't ever know the findings of the Royal Commission. He died in August. Brian's widow Ellie expressed her heartbreak and frustration, telling the Commission he had an agonising death, which on the information available to me was avoidable, inexcusable and unforgivable. Gabriella Power, Sky News.
I told you that the media needs to keep up the attention. Remember how it was wall-to-wall coverage of what was happening when it came to the aged care Royal Commission's interim report? That lasted for not even 36 hours. It was only one newspaper in Australia who decided to put it anywhere near their front page today. And that's why this is going to be able to keep happening again and again and again. Because the spotlight that is attention moves on too quickly. Now, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can talk about fires that are taking place around the country, as well as tell you this story. We can talk about big politics around the world and talk about this story. But what about this from the aged care lobby? The aged care lobby is out there, in my view, well, trying to scare the government out of putting new restrictions on their business, forcing them to do things other than feed people food that costs $6 a day. To take care of people at a first world standard, not a third world standard. Because this is what they threw into the newspapers today. That some 200 nursing homes with about 50,000 residents across Australia are operating at an unacceptably high risk of insolvency. Analysis by a leading aged care advocacy group reveals. Yeah, right. Honestly? Do you honestly believe that there are that many centres that are so close to going broke? When the 50,000 people inside those facilities had to sell their house to get into them? Where you had to cash out your super to get into one of these? I've seen this playbook before. About 10 years ago, I worked on Sydney radio. I was spectacularly unsuccessful when it came to ratings, but I was dogged when it came to a couple of issues. And you remember the fatal fire where all of those older people were murdered, effectively, by somebody who set off a fire inside a nursing home. Well, this was a nursing home that didn't have sprinklers in it. Water sprinklers would have put out that fire. It would have stopped that fire spreading from one room to another, to another, to another, and killing people as they were lying in their beds. And I remember all day, every day, thump, thump, thump. This has got to be the new rule. I don't care what happens. We must have a rule that every single facility in the state and country should have these sprinklers. Do you know what one of the first things that they started to push back, that being the aged care industry? Oh, lots of centres will go broke if you make us do this. You know what happened? No one went broke. If you are in the business of taking care of people, you should actually take care of them. If you are in the business of taking care of people when they need even more care, more nutrition, more love, more focus, more protection, that's your job. If you can't do it, get out of it. But don't try to tell me that you're about to go broke because rules of decency are about to be introduced to the system, ones that even someone from beyond the grave is calling for. Now, I've talked before on this show about the crippling ageism in Australia. The fact that right now is probably the first time you heard about that story. And we've got a 24-hour news channel here that you watch. So many newspapers don't reply on this stuff. Ageism exists when young people who control so much of the news that you read and hear about do not put priority on these things because it's just not their life yet. And it's not sexy to lead the news with these things. It's not as exciting as wall-to-wall coverage of smoke and fire. But the truth is that more people will die as a result of this system than in any natural disaster we'll be facing anytime soon. It's our job to keep talking about this. The bravery of that family to come forward and bugger you to the lobby who is trying to already send signals about when you try to make us do the decent thing, we'll go broke. Pull the other one. It plays jingle bells.